Welcome, everybody, to another great episode of the Alford Sports Talk Show. I'm Alan, and today we have a fantastic show for you. There's a lot of stuff going on with this Michael Oher, the Tuohy family situation. There's a lot of misconception, lies, innuendos that are going out there. Guess what, folks? I've done a ton of research. I've got my investigative lens on. I went through a lot of stuff. I'm going to give you a big scope of what's going on, what is misleading, what is not true, what is really, truly going on with the Michael Oher versus Tuohy situation. I'll break it all down. This is done in response to some of the hate that's been going on the internet. I've seen a really, really poor display from a sports personality slamming Michael Oher, and I'm going to go ahead and give you my opinion for the first time publicly. I have not said anything about this case on the internet and until now. And on top of that, I want to let you know a few things, a few disclaimers. All of the information that you're going to hear has been verified and double-checked and is sourced out. Every single piece of information will be put in the links below that I have obtained. I'm also going to say that I'm a foster parent and an adoptive parent. So I'm going to give you another perspective of that. And on top of that, I want to let you know here at the Alford Sports Talk Show, I've been blessed to interview NFL players, coaches, people aspiring to get into the NFL, XFL players, and beyond. So I will give you the sports side of this too and let you hear all of this today on the Alford Sports Talk Show. But before we get started, let me go ahead and thank our great sponsor, Chef G's Florida Barbecue Sauce. So delicious and addicting. You may need a support group. 4 delicious flavors: classic, honey mustard, fusion, and heat wave. You can go ahead and get yourself a 4-pack at flbbqsauce.com, flbbqsauce.com. You can also see my great friend Chef G's Florida Barbecue Sauce right at 301 South 22nd Street here in Tampa, Florida. Let him know that the Alford Sports Talk Show sent you. He's got a great location. I actually went to the red carpet, so check my man Chef G's out. You won't be disappointed. So, it's so much information that I got for you. It's almost hard to kind of funnel it in. So just bear with me, sit tight. Let me do that work for you. Now, the blind side, let's start from this part here. How did the blind side begin? From the book. The book was started from Michael Lewis. One of the things that came very apparent to me when I started doing the research about this drama between the Tuohys and Michael Oher, one thing that came apparent to me actually pretty early in the game, that we all knew the Tuohys were very wealthy. But one thing became apparent very early in the game was not only were they very wealthy, they are well connected. They know people. And that is an understatement. Let me talk about that a bit more. The book, The Blind Side, was written by Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis is a very acclaimed author. He's written the Blind Side book, but he's also written Moneyball. Both of these books turn into big blockbuster successes, Moneyball and also The Blind Side. Well, Michael Lewis is also, for those who don't know, the childhood friend of Sean Tuohy. So when I say they go back, they go way back, and that's an understatement. Michael Lewis is the best friend of Sean Tuohy. So they went ahead and made a deal for the movie, the book, of The Blind Side. And then that's how the book was written. In this book, they went ahead and made $70,000, according to Michael Lewis, in royalty fees. They broke it up 5 different ways, and that apparently was around 14,000 per person. 14,000 for Michael Oher, 14,000 for the other 4 family members: Sean, Leanne Tuohy, Collins, and SJ. So there you go. That was a breakdown. Now, if you do the math on that, that is basically an 80-20 split. 80% of every dollar is going to the Tuohys. 20% of every dollar, based on that math, is going to Michael Oher, allegedly. Now, of course, We're going to get into the money aspect a bit later, and I'll go ahead and break down the figures even more for you a little bit later. But just remember that number for now, 80-20. Now, that's the book deal, how that book deal came about. Now here comes the movie deal. And for that part, let me go ahead and read verbatim Michael Lewis's portion in an interview he did in the Washington Post. In this interview, we're going to discuss how the book turned into a movie. This is according to Michael Lewis in the Washington Post. Fox, however, never made the movie. According to Lewis, the studio had thought Julia Roberts would be interested in the film, but she wasn't. And those who don't know, Julia Roberts is an actress that went ahead and played in the movie Pretty Women. So Julia Roberts was the first person they initially thought was going to do the movie, and she was not interested in it. She declined it. Instead, Lewis said Alcon, a small production company backed by Tuohy's neighbor, FedEx CEO Fred Smith, stepped in. So, folks, let me stop right there. The movie The Blind Side was done and financially backed by the neighbor, the Tuohy's neighbor, who is Fred Smith. That's who did the movie. And according to the statements here, Fred Smith, for those who don't know, is short for Frederick Smith. Fred Smith, folks, is the founder and former CEO of FedEx. So check this out. The neighbor, who is a multi-billionaire, is the one who funds the movie. So you have best friend does the book, the neighbor does the movie deal. And he happens to be the founder of FedEx and former CEO. He stepped down last year. He's retired now, but he's also now the chairman of the board. So that's how the movie got birthed, in Michael Lewis's own words, allegedly. So they go ahead and do the movie now. Movie gets made. In the production of the movie, Michael Oher is not even a part of the production of this movie. According to Quinton Aaron, who was the actor who played Michael Oher in the movie, according to his own interview, allegedly, Quinton Aaron did not even meet Michael Oher until 4 years after the movie was made. And in that interview, he said that basically, Michael said he hated the movie, is what was alleged. And on top of that, he said that he was getting ready for the combine for the NFL. And throughout the process, he also said that the Tuohys were very hands-on throughout the production of the movie. And this time, Michael was playing football for Ole Miss. So check this out. The movie is done. Michael has no input on that. And on top of that, he's not even there through the production of the movie. It's all being funneled from the Tuohys to the neighbor. This is extraordinary revelation, folks. Okay. They go ahead and finish the movie. Now, it's 2009, and Michael's ready to go to the NFL. Now, let me just take a step back just a moment. The conservatorship is the big point of contention. And the lawsuit, the 14-page deposition that Michael Oher has submitted, is basically broken down to 3 parts. Let me break that down. A is a conservatorship, B is the money, and C is the name, usage, and likeness that he does not want the Tuohys to use anymore. So let's talk about the A now, the conservatorship. The conservatorship was signed right at the end of the year, and then 2 months later, a little over 2.5 months later, that's when they signed the letter of intent to go to Ole Miss. Okay. So for those who don't know, a conservatorship, you can get a lot of information about that. That is basically a Britney Spears term. You know, she made it famous. But to make a long story short, a conservatorship is basically a power of attorney. You are basically saying this person has power of attorney over me, and there is no familiar family outlook on it all. You're not part of the family when you sign a conservatorship. Now, what Michael Oher is contending is that, hey, you know, the Tuohys allegedly are saying that, hey, when you got me to sign this, you were saying this was a step towards the adoption. And then, you know, the reason why we went this route is because of the fact that I was, you know, turning 18 and we didn't want to have problems with the NCAA. Let me stop right there. That is not entirely true. Now, I won't say that the attorneys that advise the Tuohys were, you know, lying, but I will say they may have misinformed them, or the Tuohys, you know, could be telling you a different version of really what happened. I won't speculate on that. I'll let you guys decide in the comments below what you think. But the reality is, in the state of Tennessee, you can adopt someone who's under 18 and over 18. You can adopt an adult. So the fact that they could not adopt Michael Oher is simply not true. It's just not true. You can do the research yourself. I will put the link below too. You can adopt someone who's 18 in the state of Tennessee and older. Now, I will say this much. From the process of myself doing an adoption twice, typically speaking, in most cases, when you do an adoption, it's going to take longer than 2 months. It's typically going to take anywhere between 3 to 8 months. And on top of that, it is a lot of paperwork. Let me just let you know that right now. So anyway, they sign this conservatorship towards the end of the year. And then 2 months later, 2.5 months later, is National Signing Day. And then Michael Oher commits to Ole Miss. Okay. So they're working on the movie. They go ahead and start doing this thing without Michael. And then the movie goes ahead and then gets dropped in 2009. In 2009, also, Michael is the 23rd pick for the Baltimore Ravens in the first round. So gets drafted. A few months later, the movie comes out, and it becomes a worldwide success. $309+ million. Sandra Bullock wins the Oscar for Best Actress. Now, when the movie actually comes out, 2009, Michael sees this movie, and he instantly hates the movie. Up until now, he says he's seen it one time. Let me just give you a few of the factors, not all of them, but a few of the factors which would make someone hate a movie that's about their life. Okay. Some of the major factors that Michael took issue with, as we all know, he said it quite a few times, was that the movie made him look, quote unquote, dumb. And that is actually a gross understatement. The movie made him look like a big hunk of a man with no confidence, absolutely no intelligence whatsoever. I mean, wow. Did you have to make him look that dumb? So much so that I said I'm a foster parent and adopt a parent. And my wife would even agree with this. It's funny, but it's true at the same token. We had a 2-year-old girl that stayed with us. And that 2-year-old girl was more intellectually smarter than the version of the Hollywood version of The Blind Side, 17-year-old Michael Oher. That's how dumb they made him look, dumb they made him seem in this movie. And that's an understatement. Another issue that Michael took offense to was the notion that a 6-year-old boy had to actually teach Michael how to play football by using condiments. And then one of the big movies of the movie was when Sandra Bullock had to confront Michael Oher and just dumb it down. When you think of me, think you're protecting me and SJ, and that's why you and how you need to block. Folks, all of this did not happen. And let me give you the real version of what happened. Before the Tuohys ever met Michael, Michael was a D5 All-American athlete. He was considered one of the top 5 linemen in the United States of America. Imagine you have an athlete in your home that's one of the top 5 offensive linemen in the country. D5 athlete. And for those who don't know, D3, D4, D5. When you're a D5 athlete, if some coach is not out there trying to knock on your door and get you to sign, that coach is not doing a good job. That is the bottom line. Michael Oher already had offers at this point before meeting the Tuohys. He had offers. It was just a matter of where he was going to go. It goes on. Okay. Another issue that Michael took a huge, like, what the heck, was the fact that the Tuohys took all the credit. Not just his credit, but other people who were involved credit. One person who had a very small part in the movie, but it was very, very significant, important, was Tony Henderson. Tony Henderson was the gentleman who lobbied to get not only his son, but as a package deal to get Michael to go to Briarcrest Christian High School. He lobbied to get him in, as a package deal based on his athletics. And they went ahead reluctantly and did it. Coach Freeze was the person who he basically told him, you should take this deal. And Coach Freeze did accept, and they got him to go to the school where he was noticed for having such outstanding athletics. And on top of that, he also was athletic in basketball and football track too. So my man was killing the game at this point. So let's go a little bit further now. One of the big controversies too in the movie The Blind Side was how did the Tuohys actually meet? Well, the real version, folks, is it wasn't SJ, short for Sean Jr., that met Michael. It was the dad who befriended Michael. The dad made friends with Michael. That's like me befriending a 17-year-old boy. That is very different than a 6-year-old boy making a friend. And not only that, it gets more, folks. Michael Oher was not homeless. The man was not homeless. Michael Oher was living with Tony Henderson, as I mentioned earlier, but there was 2 other families that he also had an opportunity to stay with. So yes, he did not have a permanent residence, but he was basically able to go to Tony Henderson house, the other 2 families was helping, not the Tuohys, and kind of rotate. This is all before the Tuohys even came in the picture. So these are some of the discrepancies. There's a lot more. Now, let's even talk about the Ole Miss decision. And that was the first time in the movie when they started going ahead, when the recruiter, the lady was like, hey, why did you choose Ole Miss? This was the first time in the entire movie where Michael Oher challenged the Tuohys' motives and he challenged their authority. He basically said, did you do all of this to get me to go to Ole Miss where you wanted to? And in the movie, Lee and Tuohy basically said, yeah, we wanted you to go to Ole Miss. Okay, let me go ahead and explain that to you as well. According to what the Tuohy's attorney said, and we'll just go based on that. I think it was a lot more. But based on what the Tuohy's attorney said, was Michael had 3 offers: LSU, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Now, out of those 3 options, and this is not a diss on Ole Miss. Let me just be clear. Let me be clear. I have actually even interviewed the number 1 overall draft pick for Ole Miss, and that was Eli Manning. You can even watch that video yourself. So this is not a diss on Ole Miss. Let me make that clear. Out of the top 10 schools that you're researching where you should go, where if you're trying to go ahead and make it to the NFL, it's LSU, Tennessee, and then Ole Miss is down here. Ole Miss is around the 20th on the list. Nick Saban at the time was number 3. And Tennessee was, at the time, the number 11 school to go to. It was up there. And folks, he had better options. You know, my thing is, hey, why don't you go to LSU? You know? And even the recruiter, the lady, the NCAA investigator said the same thing. It looks suspicious. It looks suspicious. So if he would have went to LSU, the reason why I say this is because he was drafted number 23 in the first round, which is outstanding. Don't get me wrong. There's players that reach out to me that want to make it to the NFL, and they would take that in a heartbeat. So nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. But folks, if he would have went to LSU with the same academics, same performance, I mean, we'll never know, but chances are you're going to be in the top 10. Worst case scenario, the top 12, which means that your draft pick would have been higher, which means that your first contract would have, you know, in most cases been higher too. Now, staying on that Ole Miss, he decides to go to Ole Miss. And guess what? That same coach that was in Briarcrest High School ends up becoming the head coach 20 days later for Michael Oher. So 20 days later. Coincidence? I think not. But on top of that, there's a package deal. So in Ole Miss, he gets the coach that was in Briarcrest High School, Christian High School, comes along, the tutors, you know, Sue, as well as the entire Tua family. And this is within 2.5 months of signing that conservatorship, which could have been an adoption, you know, we'll just say it like that. So all of this stuff is highly suspect. I'll just say it as that. Okay, let's go ahead, and the movie, we done talked about that. And there was a lot more other discrepancies, but I just want to touch on some of the major ones here. And then the point of contention with Michael Oher and the Tuohys really started when that movie was released. I mentioned to you earlier that Michael Oher had no input in the production of the movie. And it begs to question a few things. Why would you portray me as looking as that dumb in the movie? Do you really think I'm that dumb is one of the things that Michael questioned? Or were you okay with them portraying me as that dumb? Or a combination of both? Either way, it is a bad look. It is a bad look because it's simply not true. Folks, let me start knocking out some of these innuendos now and these hypotheticals and these bogus arguments that people are throwing out. I'm going to start hitting you with them right now. First and foremost, let me make it clear to you. Let's talk about the money. Let's talk about the money. One of the things that people keep saying around is, hey, the Tuohys had money. They sold the company for over $200 million. They didn't need no money. What did they need Michael's money for? Come on. Folks, that's a weak argument. That is so weak. That is so weak. And that is coming from somebody who's actually met of several millionaires and several multi-millionaires and several billionaires. I'm telling you, that is simply not true. Some of the most greediest people you will meet in the world are rich people. Now, I'm not saying that for everybody, but that is what happens. You go to a poor place and you go to a rich place. If you're talking about people stealing or trying to make more, it's like a disease. You're going to find more in the rich. We can see that in everyday life in corporate America. You know, they make billions. It's not good enough. They have to lay off your whole department. And it just gets greedy and greedy. I'll give you a small, little quick story. And this is a biblical principle too. And I'll give VeggieTales, who does, for those who don't know, who do very good Bible-related stories for kids. In this version of the VeggieTales, you see a king. He's in a tub. He has a bunch of rubber duckies, bunch of them. And they're all the same color likeness of each one of them to being the same. He looks in the distance while taking his bath, and he sees someone else with just one rubber ducky with the same image, color, and likeness as the one that he's in the tub with all of them. Guess what happens? Not only does he take that one rubber ducky, that one single rubber ducky, the same as all of the other ones, same color, likeness, and everyone, he takes him out. And he said he had to have that rubber ducky. We see this in the Bible story, David. Greed just builds on greed. So the fact that, hey, the Tuohy's got money, that's all great, but it doesn't mean that somebody's not owed him money, allegedly. Some of the other innuendos that people just throw out that just say, hey, Michael Oher bit the hand that fed him. Folks, that is simply not true, as I went through earlier. As much as I want to believe the best in everybody, let me make it clear. The Tuohys did not make Michael Oher. They found Michael Oher. The Tuohys did not make Michael Oher. They found Michael Oher after he was a D5 athlete and number within a top 5 lineman. So it gets even worse. Now, having said this, some other innuendos, I'll go into some of those a bit later. I want to talk about Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock was the heat of a lot of this stuff with, hey, she should return it. See, that's the problem with a lot of people, is that they just throw out stuff. Sandra Bullock is just as heartbroken as most people who really love that movie, The Blind Side. She's playing a role in the script, and a lot of this information is coming directly from the Tuohy family. So she's playing the script. She's doing her thing. She got Best Actress on a role that she was given, a script. And on top of that, one of the best movies, one of the greatest movies I love is The Titanic. Guess who won the Best Actress? Kate Winslet, playing a fictional character that we all knew was not real. And you guys are asking her to return her Oscar. So leave Sandra Bullock alone. Not only she has to deal with this, but she recently has lost her partner and photographer. So my condolences go out to Sandra Bullock and her family. Leave Sandra Bullock alone. She had nothing to do with this. So now, let me just reiterate a bit more on the money side, okay? Because that is now, we talked about the conservatorship. Now, the conservatorship, for all intents and purposes, the attorneys for the Tuohys are basically stating that they're going to let it go. They're going to let it go. So that's the A part. Pretty much, if they keep their word, that's going to be dissolved. The B part's of money, which I'm going to talk to you in just a moment about that. And then the C part is the name, use, and likeness. By default, that's going to go away, folks, because the Tuohy family could say anything they want to say about Michael Oher. We all know he's not adopted. And we all know that there is a contentious relationship between the two of you. You know, the Tuohy family can say whatever they want, but it's not going to fly. And on top of that, the name, image, and likeness, it goes deeper than that. If you trace it and you go through it, they have been using Michael Oher's quote unquote adoption for many, many years, saying that he's adopted, and that's not true. But now we know the real truth is that he's not adopted, and he's not going to get adopted, at least anytime soon. Now, we're going to go ahead and just go ahead and talk about the money now. Okay, so that's the part in the middle. We got the A and the C taken care of. Now we're going to talk about the money. Okay. The money is, based on what we're seeing, was an 80-20 split. That's allegedly to what Michael Lewis said. Now, what the attorney said in the movie, that was the book part, the 70,000. In the movie part, allegedly, the attorneys for the Tuohys are basically saying the movie made 500,000 total profit is what everybody got as far as the start part for the Tuohy family. So the Tuohys got 500,000, and then they dispersed 100,000 to each one of the Tuohy's family members for them, and then Michael got the other fifth. Again, it's an 80-20 split. Basically, the Tuohys are getting 80%, and Michael is getting 20%, just like in the book deal, allegedly. Now, Michael Lewis said it was 370 each, was the part of their royalties. So you're getting different numbers. But one thing, so for sure, is that it's an 80-20 split. And just like a lot of other people have mentioned, I don't believe that's a fair assessment. I don't believe, in my opinion, looking at this as someone who doesn't have any financial input on either side, it's not fair. Michael's story should get at least 50% of the proceeds. It should be 50 to a non-family member, obviously, Michael Oher, and 50 for the Tuohys. So taking that number, let's say, hypothetically, allegedly, it's correct, 500,000. Out of that 500,000, 250 should go to Michael, in my opinion, and 250 should go to the Tuohys. And with that 250, they, as a family, should divide that money amongst themselves. It should not be an 80-20 split. How do you get only 20% of a movie that's based on your life? It just doesn't make sense to me. That is my opinion. And allegedly, Michael Oher didn't even get this much in this movie. 1 cent. This is more than what Michael Oher allegedly has gotten from The Blind Side, a movie that was made that was not anywhere near what's really going on. He had no production in, made him look dumb, made him look a guy who was slow, made him look like a guy who didn't know how to play football, which was not true, made him look as a guy who was homeless, which is not true. So I pray that this has a peaceful resolution. At least let's look at the positives in this. The positives is Michael Oher does not file his lawsuit. The conservatorship will still be on. So at least the A seemed like it's going to dissolve, allegedly based on the attorneys, saying that they're just going to just give up on it. The C part, well, that default, I talked about that earlier. That's going away. Now we just got to settle the B part. I hope it all comes down to the money. I pray that this gets resolved. Hey, if the Tuohys have the money like they say they do, in my opinion, you're going to have to scratch some checks. You know what I'm saying? Just go ahead and pay the man. The man deserves to get paid. Having said that, a lot of people are angry and upset about the revelation that this movie was not true. Well, let's look at the positive sides. Thanks to Michael Oher, what is brought in the darkness will come out to the light. And there's a more biblical principle. That's a biblical principle. Another one, love thy neighbor, because your neighbor might be the founder of FedEx, a multi-billionaire, and he might need to fund your movie that was written a book out of. So love thy neighbor. And the other positive thing is I will never, ever look at a quote of based on a true story ever the same. I was like, okay. And in this movie, it said based on an extraordinary story. based on an extraordinary story or based on a true story, I will never look at it the same, folks, after this movie, The Blind Side. And there is some other positive notes about this. What are the positive notes? Well, Michael Oher wanted credit for his hard work, his diligence. He also wanted to make sure other people got their credit and hard work and diligence. So I'm going to do that now. Props to Tony Henderson. Props to the two family that took in Michael prior to the Tuohys. And also, let me go ahead and give props to Michael Oher. I said at the beginning of this video, this was a response to someone being really slamming Michael Oher, another personality, and went in hard. They basically considered Michael Oher to have, quote unquote, a ghetto dream. So let's look at this ghetto dream together, shall we? Michael Oher came from Hurt Village, tough ghetto in Memphis, Tennessee. Very similar to what I experienced growing up in Brooklyn, New York. Rough neighborhood. You know, unfortunately, it was drug, crack. There was, just multiple kids, 11 siblings. Rough is understatement. He was getting left back in the first and second grade because of all this trauma. And you can imagine it was chaos, total chaos. None of this was anything that Michael did to deserve it. He was just born, unfortunately, in a bad situation. So he had to deal with this. But he made the decision that he was not going to go into the narrative and do like other people did in Hurt Village. He was going to make something out of himself. Now, he was a little bit behind school. And let me stop right there for a quick second. Kids that are in foster care, and I have had the pleasure of taking kids in foster care. I'm still a foster parent. It is par for the course. It is very normal and standard operating procedure where a kid would be behind in school for a year, maybe two, maybe even more, because they're dealing with rated R stuff that they should not be dealing with or seeing on a day-to-day basis. It is just too much chaos and too much going on. It could be abuse. It could be neglect. It could be a whole slew of things. Another stereotype I'm going to clear up here, and is just low-income Black families that are in foster care. That is absolutely positively not true. I have taken care of Black kids, white kids, and Spanish. In fact, the two girls that I have adopted are Spanish. So don't go with that narrative, okay? It is simply not true, okay? Now, back to Michael Oher. So he came out of those hard streets, went ahead and did his thing in school, went on to Briarcrest Christian High School. In there, he excelled in football, basketball, and track. Became a D5 All-American, considered one of the top 5 linemen in the United States. Was recruited by people all over. And then on top of that, he went ahead and became an All-American, and he graduated, went on to Ole Miss. As he went on to Ole Miss, he ended up becoming, and graduated from Ole Miss, he went up becoming the first-round draft pick by the Baltimore Ravens. Ended up winning a Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens and ended up playing 8 years in the NFL. The NFL, for those who don't know, stands for National Football League, but it also could stand for NFL, not for long. Not for long. And the reason why I say that, because the average career for an NFL player is 3 years and 3 months. And Michael went ahead and played 8 years in the NFL league, the not for long league. The average salary in the NFL is $860,000. Michael Oher played for 8 years, and in those 8 years, he amassed a total earnings of over $34 million. So, and then it gets more. Michael Oher is the author of 2 books and a best-selling author. So, folks, not bad for somebody who had a ghetto dream. In fact, we're going to use that to end on today's message. Go out and make your own ghetto dreams. Go out and be an artist, a musician, a painter, a teacher, an astronaut, an NFL football player, a basketball player, a baseball player. Dream big, folks. Have your ghetto dreams, because when you reach for the stars, you never know what can happen. Don't let people deminimize you by saying you have a quote unquote ghetto dream in a negative way. Michael Oher didn't do that, and he went ahead and became a mega superstar success. Folks, have your ghetto dreams. Do it. Don't give up. Keep fighting. Keep doing your thing. Don't let the naysayers say you anything different. I pray that this case has resolution and comes to an amicable restitution. And folks, do not forget, if you love this comment, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Alford Sports Talk Show. I really enjoyed doing all this research. I might do another second half of the story, but for now, that is all on this episode of the Alford Sports Talk Show. Take care, be blessed, be well, and take care for now.